morning, everybody. Excited to be here and kick off the morning. I work at MakerDAO, so we are a open financial system, which some of you may or may not be familiar with. Just as a raise of hands, so I don't kind of bore you with too many details. How many people are familiar with MakerDAO? Okay, so a fair amount. So quickly, just to go over what we are, we're essentially a decentralized stablecoin, a credit system, and an open governance system. So DAI is the first decentralized stablecoin built on the Ethereum network. And what that means is that all DAI is created by a digital asset locked in collateral in our smart contracts. And currently that collateral is called Ether. We're going to be moving on to version 2 of our system, which is called multi-collateral DAI in the coming months, where we'll be able to incorporate different types of digital assets as collateral to create DAI. But a fundamental difference with our stablecoin and other stablecoins on the market is that we are collateral backed with a digital asset as opposed to fiat backed, where there's an actual hard fiat dollar backed and reserved, by a bank or a central party that is custodying those reserves. So fundamentally different in that sense, where we're not actually custodying anybody's funds. It's all done through our smart contracts and on a peer-to-peer basis. So we've been live since 2017. The project started in 2015, but we launched what we call single collateral DAI in December 2017. And to date, we have 83 million DAI in circulation. So the DAI credit system is essentially these smart contracts that hold collateral and create DAI. So this is a system that really kind of touches upon the theme of decentralized finance, which is what I know many speakers are going to touch on today. So the idea being that as an individual, you can create essentially an IOU, or what some people refer to as a loan of DAI, which is soft pegged to $1 in a way that doesn't require you to go to a bank or a third party, provide a credit score or personal information. This is really a system that kind of disintermediates these other parties in a way that allows you to create money based on what you have. And again, that right now is collateral in the form of Ether. So to date, since launching, we've issued roughly 300 million DAI. There are about 32,000 unique DAI holders, which doesn't sound like a lot when you compare it to the likes of some of the other stablecoins out there, but DAI is actually one of the most highly transacted and active stablecoins. So what that means is really DAI is being used, particularly across the Ethereum network, in dApps, exchanges, and different types of protocols as a key function of transacting value. So that's a key kind of differentiator, I would say, with DAI as well, in that we're just a very highly active stablecoin. So with what's coming next in our system, we always looked at building a system where it could scale and we wouldn't be limited to one particular type of asset that you could back as collateral. Again, that's Ether. So when we launch multi-collateral, which is coming, I would say, this fall, we'll be able to accept different collateral types. So these will all be ERC20 based, still because we're tied to the Ethereum mainnet. They'll have to be standardized by an Ethereum, kind of code. So ERC20 tokens beyond Ether. So thinking about like the top 20 by market cap, coins could be accepted as collateral types. We'll also be able to accept things like security tokens, DigX, which is a gold-backed token, so things like that that provide more real-world assets that are tied to what you're able to borrow against. So that's pretty exciting, and this is essentially going to scale the system where each collateral type will have its own unique debt ceiling, so meaning the amount of DAI that can be created off of that particular asset. It will also have its own collateralization ratio, so how much you need to lock up in order to get a specific amount out. So right now with Ether, you're always over collateralized by 150%. And that's important because the stability of DAI is really based on having this over collateralized amount, where if the price of Ether started to drop, the outstanding DAI in circulation would always there'd be always more collateral covering it, to an extent where unless you reached a threshold, the system would then go through this automatic liquidation process. But in order to manage volatility, we are over collateralizing a lot of these assets. So looking at their risk profile of collateralization, what the liquidation penalty would be, and just so all of these new assets will have their own unique risk profiles in the system. Then another really exciting part is we're going to be incorporating what we call the DAI savings rate. So this is essentially a way for any person that has DAI to lock up your DAI in a smart contract, which is the DAI smart contract savings rate, and you'll be able to earn interest. So you could liken it to a savings account where you're basically just parking DAI that you hold and earning interest. So this is really fascinating because this is, again, a differentiator against other stablecoins out there where you're actually able to earn interest on what you're holding. We'll also use the DAI savings rate as another mechanism to balance stability, where right now we have something called the stability fee, which is essentially the amount you pay when you close out your smart contract loan of DAI. You're essentially paying a stability fee, which some relate to an interest fee for borrowing. So that is one of the main levers we use right now to manage stability, whereas the DAI savings rate will also become another kind of economic lever we can play with to manage stability. And then further, with the launch of multi-collateral DAI, we'll be able to visualize not just USD pegged stablecoins, but also DAI pegged to the euro, the DAI pegged to the British pound, which will really kind of help with a more global distribution. The scientific governance aspect of the system is crucial. So Maker holders, Maker is our other token, which essentially governs the system. So MKR, if you hold MKR, you can vote on different proposals to manage the system. And those proposals could be things like, should we raise the stability fee? Should we, what types of assets should we vote in as collateral? So each MKR holder has a voice in governing the system. And so that's really makes it a much more open and transparent process, in that it's not the Maker Foundation or Maker employees that are internally voting on what happens to the system. So some may recall in the last few months, we went through a series of stability fee increases. And, we did go from a very, small stability fee of 3% all the way up to, north of 18%. And there was some outcry in the media saying, why is Maker doing this? Why is Maker increasing their fees? Is this the foundation? Is this, their employees trying to do something to their benefit? No, it's not. These are Maker holders, anybody who is looking at the system and saying, in order to restore the peg, these measures must be taken. So in order for the system to work and be healthy, good governance is required by all. So when those decisions are positive, it has a positive effect on the system. When Maker holders vote in a way or manage the system that is, not to the best of the system's, structure, then that will be reflected in how the system is run. So all this to say that open governance is a new part of decentralized, a decentralized organization. And it's something that, we encourage people to participate in. Every Thursday, we have an open governance call that people could dial into wherever you are and participate and voice your thoughts on how you think, what things should be taking place. So looking at our DApp ecosystem and just kind of who is using DAI, we started out really kind of at the developer level. So developers, particularly building on Ethereum, are very excited about DAI and the promise that DAI holds. So we've had the benefit of being built in to many different apps and protocols. So things within exchanges, decentralized exchanges, others, third-party dApps. You'll hear from today. I think Zerion is speaking today. I'm not sure if he's here yet. But people who are taking our CDP interface and creating new entry points through different mobile gateways, different web interfaces that take the DAI credit system or some piece of DAI and layer it into a new UI. So a lot of third-party developer growth has been a huge, success to DAI's adoption. And then we, certainly have payments as a key aspect, and then decentralized finance, which again is a big part of what DAI is used for. So some of the use cases, this is a little bit of we just talked about, but disaster relief. So we are partnering with organizations like UNICEF, the Lupus Foundation, Needs List, who are using DAI as a means to fundraise and also to send money to impacted areas as a way to have better tracking and a quicker kind of, sending time, certainly when it's cross borders. So we're finding, this is a really important space for us. Payments, we're talking to enterprise organizations that are looking at utilizing DAI kind of in the back end of their workflows as a way for settlements to be able to expedite times where somebody would be able to get paid for a particular invoice, particularly when it comes to accounts receivables. Just looking at ways where DAI can represent this much quicker digital settlement layer for enterprise clients, and then going more into DeFi. DAI has really been the backbone of fueling the DeFi movement. So when you look at projects like Compound, Dharma, UMA, DYDX, and Augur, they're all using DAI as a key piece of their system, whether it's to lend, giving people an opportunity to lend or borrow, using DAI in their prediction markets to have as their denominated pair. So you wouldn't want to make a prediction in a volatile asset like Bitcoin because you might wind up paying more than you intended to. So having a stable currency in these decentralized financial platforms has been key. And then looking just kind of at large, what we've been doing, we have about 165 and growing live integration partners across the globe, from different use cases. WireX, which is pretty popular here, recently integrated DAI. So now if you have a WireX card and you want to use it when you're out dining and you have DAI, you can easily use WireX and DAI for everyday purchases where WireX is accepted. And that's it. I feel like I was speaking very quickly. How am I doing with time? Good? Over? Or that's it? All right. So there's no questions now, but thank you. And if you do have any questions, please look for me afterwards. I'd love to connect with you. Thank you.